There is no moment in Virginia Tech history that both destroyed and brought together the community quite like April 16, 2007. Welcome to this special edition of Tech Tonight. I'm Rebecca Choate.
And I'm Muhammad Ali. That fateful Monday morning started out like any other, but within a few hours it changed the face of the nation.
At 6:47 a.m., the gunman was spotted loitering outside West Amberlin Johnson Hall, where, at 7:15, he kills Emily Hilscher and residential advisor Ryan Clark. The police received their first call at 7:20, and for the next hour, police arrive on the scene and look for suspects. At 9:01, gunman Cho sends a package in the mail to NBC News in New York with tapes and materials alluding to the massacre he's about to commit. He is then seen entering Norris Hall between 9:15 and 9:30 and chains the door shut from the inside, opening fire at 9:40 in classrooms 206, 207, 211, and 204. Emily Haas is shot twice in the head but manages to call 911. Within 3 minutes of the call, at 9:45, police arrive at Norris Hall. At 9:50, an email is sent informing the community a shooter is on the loose on campus. At 9:51, just as police arrive on the second floor, Cho commits suicide. The shooting lasted 11 minutes, killing 30 and wounding 17.
After the then largest mass shooting in American history, Hokies and allies around the world were in a shared state of despair. For the past 10 years, the university and surrounding areas have learned to heal, but also never to forget.
While support for Virginia Tech poured in throughout the world, the changes Blacksburg made within itself shows the strength of the community to overcome hardship and its dedication to a brighter future. In the hours following the April 16th tragedy, a group of Virginia Tech students placed 32 Hokie stones in a semicircle on the drill field. The simple tribute to those who lost their lives was soon a permanent tribute outside of Burris Hall. The permanent stones left in the same order as the ones left by students a few months earlier. The Hokie stone, a symbol for Virginia Tech's foundation, would carry new meaning. Each stone, weighing 300 pounds, is engraved in honor of the Virginia Tech students and faculty who lost their lives. A single stone at the center of the semicircle memorializes all the fallen and injured of the day. 10 years later, the Hokie stone has come to symbolize the Hokie Nation's relentless spirit and courage to move forward.
What started out as just another day in class quickly turned into a day no one could ever forget. Tech Tonight's Ashley Wills reports.
It's like a horror film, but it's about your life, and you know it is about you.
As fifth-year engineering senior Kevin Stern sat in his German class in Norris Hall room 207 on a cold April morning, his life would forever change.
When the banging started happening, it wasn't that out of the ordinary. As far as like a sound you would hear on campus. And so it wasn't until, we see someone walk in with a gun that we kind of realize what's happening.
The gunman shot Stern twice in the leg, with one of the bullets rupturing his femoral artery.
Instantly, my whole leg just kind of felt like it went to sleep. And that was from the shot that tore my artery. It wasn't until a hospital later that they told me I was shot a second time.
Realizing the extent of his injuries, Stern, a former Eagle Scout, made a tourniquet out of old electrical wire. Something doctors say saved his life.
There's a tagging system, and when you get a black tag, that means you're left to die. On the second sweep, they went through and found him still alive. And there's a picture of the police carrying him out with a tourniquet wrapped around his thigh, bleeding to death.
He hit the emergency room door and they rolled him straight back to the OR. Yeah. He was the only one. They had no idea who he was. They worked on him for a couple hours and ended up saving his life.
Physical recovery took over a year, but he still managed to come back to Blacksburg to get his diploma in May.
To watch him hobble across the stage on his crutches and get his diploma was, it's great.
Over the years, Stern says dealing with the memories of that day becomes a little easier.
It's not something I think about every day anymore. It certainly, in the first year, maybe a couple of years, it was something that was hard not to think about. It isn't as much anymore. It isn't as much in my head. And I'm kind of thankful for that.
And looking back, it's the outpouring of support that helped him get through the difficult times.
Grateful and thankful for the support of random people, around the world, let alone the country. From 87-year-old grandmothers sending me glamour shots and poems on real fancy, printed paper kind of thing to elementary school children that, just have a couple of words on them.
In the minutes and hours after the attack, it became a race against the clock to save lives. Tech Tonight's Ashley Wills sat down with the medics from that day.
When tragedy strikes, for most of the world, their day comes to a grinding halt. But for some, it's just the beginning.
You know, we're trained to do what we do, but there's things that come in that we saw and had to deal with that no one should ever see or do or be part of.
As first responders headed to Norris Hall on April 16th, they didn't know what to prepare for.
I kind of liken it to the Twin Towers scenario where there was a lot of medical readiness, a lot of people ready to do something and help, but there was no one coming.
And for Dr. Thomas Burnett, even 16 years of military experience couldn't prepare him for what he faced inside.
In a war zone, it's something you almost expect, but to see that in an area where you have friends and family in what is supposed to be a safe and protected environment, it feels very personal, and it feels like something has been threatened that shouldn't be threatened.
With the heavy winds that day, helicopters were not an option, so everyone wounded was treated in the area, including Lewis Gale Hospital Montgomery. The small-town Level 3 trauma center only has 17 emergency beds, and that day, they filled every last one.
It doesn't matter how small you are, that just prepare for it and practice for it and train for it. But even if you just save one person, it's all worth it.
Looking back on that day, they say it was the little moments that had the most impact.
Seeing a bike rack in front of the building with bikes, and we realized that most of those bikes weren't going to be picked up. That probably never be picked up by the students, and that really, I can still see the bike rack.
And after a day saving lives so close to home, when they left work that night, it began to sink in.
It's the first time my wife and kids saw me cry. It was hard. It was hard watching my 2-year-old tell me it's okay.
And for Burnett, the horrors of that day followed him home.
I didn't know that until after I woke up. I had walked through water going into the house, and we had bloody footprints all over the carpet and all over the floors in the house because the blood from my boots that was dried was now stained all over the carpets. It really settled in kind of there.
In the weeks after, Hill says seeing normalcy in the community helped begin the healing process.
When the dust had settled, a lot of the ER folks went to Sharkey's, and we sat there right in the middle, and we just sat there and watched kids come in. That's what we did. Because we missed them, we loved them. We wanted to see them have a good time for a change.
Looking back 10 years later, Burnett says it's the community that struck him the most.
To see that community come together and learn from those instances and move on and become stronger has been something that's always really impressed me. So, yeah.
In the aftermath of the shooting, campus police began to look at what went wrong.
The changes the university made when we return.